Hey, good day, everybody. This is Zemar Sopatu, and welcome to another edition of the Sports Inquirer Show. We're broadcasting from Atlanta, Georgia on September 9th, 2020. Hope all of you are well out there in the world. We're doing this in the morning time, a little bit different than our usually do late mornings and to early afternoons. Actually, we're broadcasting at 7:30 a.m. Got to get an early one in because we got a full day ahead of us personally and professionally and so things like that. So the good part is at least I get to wake up and actually see the start of the Tour de France. I think they're in stage 11, so they have a really good stage coming up. I like Tour de France. I like seeing international events. You know, we follow the football quite a bit, especially European, the English Premier League, things like that. I also like the Tour de France. I like the visuals. I like the geography and learning about the countrysides and the metropolitan areas and things like that. So I'm intrigued by that type of stuff. But on today's broadcast, we're going to discuss Atlanta United's upcoming contest against Inter Miami and the original free kick. And we'll delve into that contest and recap some things going on with the MLS squad. We'll also go to the NBA and the backdoor cut, discussing the NBA playoffs and some coaching moves in Brooklyn and Oklahoma City. And finally, in the miscellaneous department, we'll discuss our technical state of Georgia Athletics podcast that we've recorded a few days ago, and also the NHL playoffs and Novak Djokovic defaulting or getting ejected from the tennis U.S. Open. So we'll delve into that topic as well. But as always, want to follow everything that we're doing, head to the mothership, and that is the sportsinquirer.net. We've been doing a lot of interviews lately. We finally figured out how to use Zoom. We're heading into the 21st century, or at least the 2020 era of everything that's going on. So we've done exclusive interviews with Georgia State volleyball head coach Sally Bohemus. We've done the interviews with Georgia Tech volleyball head coach Michelle Collier. We did a really good interview yesterday with Georgia State men's soccer head coach Brett Surensey, and that was really intriguing. I never spoke with him before. It was a really good interview, and got to learn about the program and how the college soccer programs, are handling the COVID pandemic. So I got some interesting information from him. Make sure you check those sites, check the site out to get those exclusive interviews in our Zoom and things like that. We also, as mentioned, recorded a technical side of Georgia Athletics podcast, and we brought that back. We put the start of college football season, at least for Georgia Tech, within the next few days as you're listening to the show. So make sure you go to the site and check all of those out. You can also go to our Twitter and Instagram social media pages, and that's under Sports Inquirer. That's all one word. So make sure you subscribe to us there so you get all the updates that you need. You go to our Facebook page, which is The Sports Inquirer, and do a search there, and it's kind of the same deal. And finally, you can go to our platforms as far as the podcast and videos themselves, and on YouTube, SoundCloud, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and iTunes. You can go to any one of those platforms, do a search of The Sports Inquirer, that's all one word. You do that, and you'll be able to check everything out that we have going on with the site. Let's start off with Atlanta United and the original free kick portion of our broadcast. They actually play their next match today on September 9th. So there's a little bit of preview of that. Before we do that, let's discuss their previous contest where they had a 1-1 draw against Orlando City SC on September 5th. Adam Jahn scored his first goal for Atlanta United, and deep into stoppage time, it was in this 92nd minute of the contest to earn the draw. Let's hear from Stephen Glass, the interim manager of Atlanta United, and the team earning a point in the contest against Orlando.
I think in terms of the importance, I think it's important that the lads got what they deserved out of the game. You saw a real resolve in there, a determination not to get beat. The group of players that were on the pitch at the end injected a little bit of energy and pace, and I think in general in the second half, I think we deserve what we got. In terms of importance, we know how important it is to come here and not get beat as a first, but we want to come here and win. So we're not over the moon with a point. We know there's a lot more work to be done, especially in the top half of the pitch. Again, we could have been slightly better, looked after the ball a little bit better. And I think you saw some of that late on in the game where we were trusting it and we were really pushing it. And with a couple of opportunities. Had a great opportunity right at the start of the second half as well.
And now Stephen Glass discussing earning a draw on the road for Atlanta United. Orlando took a lead in first half stoppage time from a corner. Daryl Dike took a shot in the middle of the box and was redirected by Benji Michel into the bottom left corner. Atlanta was outplayed in the first half. We'll get to some of the statistics in a moment, but not the best effort for Atlanta United. You saw them struggle with the defense. You saw them struggle with possession. And everything like that. And once again, not having the availability of Pity Martinez, who the transfer went through, and we'll discuss that later on in a portion of the show. But he did not play in the contest. Him not being available gave Atlanta a lack of scoring opportunities, and it really showed in the first half. Atlanta was eventually able to score the game-tying goal in the second minute of stoppage time, as I mentioned, in 92nd minute. Anton Walkes played the ball to Jake Moraney on the left side, and he sent a crossing pass to the middle of the box, and Jahn was able to rise above the Orlando defenders and score a header. As in the 92nd minute to earn the tie. Moraney and Walkes were able to register their first assist for Atlanta United. Let's hear from Jahn on scoring his first goal for the club.
Thanks. I think I'm most happy about helping the team win a point in a hard place to play, a rivalry game. So I'm just all the subs that came on helped make a huge impact, and we started whipping in more balls, and I was lucky to get my head on one of them.
And that was Adam Jahn discussing scoring his first goal for Atlanta United. And you look at the statistics. Let's get into those. You look at shots. Orlando outshot Atlanta 15-9. And you say shots on target. Atlanta was 6-4. But I think the shots are more of an indication of the activity. And the statistics are a little bit deceptive because you look at the possession, and Atlanta had 56% compared to 44% for Orlando. But if you were watching the contest, you saw that Orlando really controlled the pace and flow of the action and everything like that. And Orlando committed more fouls than Orlando. They committed more fouls than Atlanta did. And the corner kicks, Atlanta was able to get 4 corner kicks in comparison to Orlando's 2. But the offense was inconsistent, really throughout the contest. But let's hear from Stephen Glass discussing that offense and trying to find consistency there.
Both we're playing against good teams that are not going to allow us to do exactly what we want to do. But I think when we started switching the ball a little bit more second half, a little bit quicker, you saw exactly what we want the group to look like. And I think we looked a hell of a lot more dangerous in the second half. I think we would agree with that. But just the pace and energy that we played with, and like I said, if they play like the game's on the line from the first minute, then I think you see a different Atlanta United. And I'm hoping what the reward that they got through feeling that tonight is something that we can take into the game in Miami.
And now Stephen Glass discussing the offense. But if you look at in the end, they earned a draw, they earned a tie, and they've now earned draws of 2 consecutive contests. And that was coming off of that 0-0 contest against Inter Miami on September 2nd. So you can say that at least they scored a goal and were able to draw a point. Here's Adam Jahn discussing the team's confidence of being able to earn a point on the road.
It definitely gives me a lot of confidence. I'm really happy to have scored my first official goal for the club. And I think, Cuba's doing great in there and as well and getting chances. And I think we're going to keep pushing each other, and I think you'll see a lot more goals coming from us. And, we have great guys on the wings whipping in balls. I owe Brooks a dinner because he had a great ball in a few minutes after I came on, and I kind of headed into my shoulder, didn't get any power on it, but he especially plays in a great ball. So we have the pieces there, and the key is for us just to keep believing in ourselves, and eventually they'll start falling, and we'll get on a roll here.
And here is Captain Jeff Larentowicz discussing the team's overcoming the adversity. We know at the start of the season, losing Joseph Martinez for the rest of the season with a knee injury, the change in the head coaching position or the manager position from Frank DeBoer to Stephen Glass, going 0-3 in the MLS's back tournament. There's been a lot of activity and a lot of things going on, including Pity Martinez with the ultimate transfer and that distraction. So there's been a lot going on with Atlanta United. Here is the captain or co-captain. We need to figure out what that is because we see Gazan as the captain, but then I've heard Steve Larentowicz as captain. I guess we need to get clarification on what the deal is, but one of the captains for the team. We'll keep it that way. Here's Jeff Larentowicz discussing the team overcoming all of these adversities that they've had to deal with the part of the year.
Well, I think that, without getting too deep into it, 2020 has been a year with a lot of adversity. I think that there's been a lot of stop-start. We've obviously had a coaching change. We've had now, a player like Pity Martinez no longer in our team. We lost Joseph in the beginning of the year. I feel like, we've taken a lot of punches this year, and it's been tough. But I think we are learning about each other. I think we have shown that we are willing to fight for each other. I think that we've had to regroup amidst all of this adversity, and we've done a pretty good job. I think we can absolutely get better. And I think that there is still a level of belief that we need to get to, but I think that we can continue to build on it, and tonight is a good step.
And now Jeff Larentowicz discussing what the team's been going through, and obviously the biggest adversity and what we're all dealing with is the COVID pandemic. So that's a sign of the adversity, but all the teams everyone's dealing with that. There's not one human being in this world that's not been impacted in some way by it. So, but that's something we're all dealing with. But if you look at it strictly from the athletic perspective, it is a lot that they've had to deal with and everything like that. The official word on Pity Martinez, we've been teasing it the whole time, but he has been officially transferred to Al Nazir FC of the Saudi Pro League for an undisclosed transfer fee. So he's going to play in the Saudi Arabian League. And the transfer window is very open, obviously with everything that's going on and the schedules and the calendars internationally being a little bit off. The window's open and really for the rest of the month. I'll put it that way. You have the European leagues, which are starting probably within the next 14 to 21 days. They're starting their campaigns, so that's why you have the transfers and everything going on there. But he transfers over to the Al Nassr in the Saudi Pro League. He opens up a designated player spot and an international spot for the club's 2020 roster. I think you look at the Pity Martinez era, him coming, come from Argentina and being the South American Player of the Year. Expectations were very high, and you expected him being pitted with Ezequiel Barco and Joseph Martinez, that it'd be a very luxurious and very strong unit or front line for Atlanta United. Did not work out necessarily that way, and especially when you consider that they were coming off of the 2018 MLS championship, that people were ready to anoint this as the dynasty or the major team. It just did not work out. I think first thing, when he came here, when the negotiations were going on, Tata Martino was going to be the manager of the team, fellow Argentinian, and his style of play, I think, was going to be more conducive to what Pity Martinez wanted to do. They make the move, or Tata Martino moves on to the Mexican national team, and that situation happens. And Pity Martinez is still committed to Atlanta United and comes here. You bring in Frank de Boer, who was a little bit of a different tactician than Tata Martino was going to be, and that's where you saw the inconsistent play from Pity Martinez. I think you just saw a lot of passive play from him. There are times when he was on the front foot and very active, and you saw him make a lot of good moves. But there was also a lot of times where he'd get the ball and hold it a little bit too long, or just pass it directionally or diagonally and not be towards the net. And there's just a lack of consistency from him in that regard. And then also when you have, he was not happy and expressed it to the media, the South American media, that was not a good situation as well. And there's just a lot of influx going on with the team right now. As I mentioned, Joseph Martinez, the former MVP of the league and the best player on the team, he's been out for the entire season, with the knee injury. You combine that with the change of the manager, and it's just a lot going on right now in the season. Like Atlanta, they play Miami tonight on September 9th, and then they're going to play Nashville. I'm doing the math there, so the 12th, and we don't know when the next game is going to be or next match. We don't know if they're going to play more regular season contest or if they're going to head straight to the playoffs. There's a lot of confusion right now, at least for the 2020 season. So Atlanta got a very nice offer. We're hearing ranges $15 to $20 million for Pity Martinez. So if they do that, that'll be a profit for when they initially brought him in. Atlanta United now has the two highest initial outgoing transfer fees in MLS history when you consider the transfer to Pity now and Miguel Almiron from last season or 2 years ago. So you add all that together, Atlanta's making a pretty solid profit. You have to figure Ezequiel Barco may be on his way out. There are rumors of him playing in various leagues around the world. And I said that transfer window is open right now. The situation, or what the key is, where does Atlanta go from here? Let's hear from Stephen Glass, manager of the team, about overcoming this type of adversity.
Even like first half, we gave the ball away way too many times in our own half, and we give ourselves problems. So against Orlando at home, we got some problems with their movement, couldn't quite handle it, and found ourselves a couple of goals down. It's a tough way back from that. I think you saw an improvement in terms of the group, that we were 1-0 down, lose a goal right on half time, but the resolve to come back and really push it the way that we did in the second half showed a belief in the group themselves, that they believe in the way that we're working. I think right from the start of the second half, we take kick-off, they don't touch the ball, and Kubo misses a header that would have been a fantastic goal, but it was a great move, and I think that initial push at the start of the second half showed a belief and gave them the belief to go ahead and continue pushing to try and get the equaliser.
And now Stephen Glass discussing trying to overcome the adversity of dealing with all the distractions. And you got to start right there with manager Glass. Where does Atlanta go for their next manager? You figure, and that's where the confusion, well, not confusion, but if you're going to replace Pity Martinez with not designated player or a major player, that's fine. But who's going to be the manager? Has Stephen Glass shown enough in his short tenure as an interim manager to bring him back full time? Are you going to bring in a manager in the middle of the season that you're going to have for long term? You have to get the manager situation resolved before you go on to signing the players. And that's where you're going to have a similar situation, I think, with Pity Martinez. If you bring in a player that may not fit the stylings of the manager, because this is the designated player, and you have to question Atlanta's moves as well. The guys they brought in replaced was Pity Martinez a good signing? Was Ezequiel Barco a good signing? When after Almiron left, we look at the guys they brought in. The Emerson Hymans, the Anton Walks, guys like that. Have Adam Jahn. Have those players been up to the standards in comparison to the departed players that they've had, from Darlington Nagbe to Julian Gressel to Leandro Gonzalez Perez? All those players are part of a championship squad, MLS championship team. Are the replacements comparable or equal to that? I don't think so. So you have to really look from Darren Neal's president to Carlos Bocanegra. Congratulations to Carlos for being a USA Hall of Famer and a National Soccer Hall of Famer. That news was announced earlier this week. Respect for that. But he's the technical director. So with Darren and Carlos, you have to look at them and see what moves are going to be made for the team to be a big club. We keep hearing that from Carlos and from Darren. And what does that mean? And then you can look at last year. It was considered a disappointing year, but they did win the Campeones Cup, and they also won the U.S. Open Cup. Those are two solid championships, but it wasn't the MLS Cup. And that's where you get the confusion of, was that a successful year? I thought it was a successful year last year. But you look at this year, though, and just the direction of the team and the lack of offensive diversity and the defensive lapses as well. We talk so much about the frontline guys. Obviously, you got to score goals to win, and that's a big part of the game. But you also look at the defensive lapses. A lot of odd man rushes. Atlanta's getting countered a lot more this year than they were last year. So it's really up and down the field of issues with the squad. And that's where they have to make some major decisions after this week of contest. But they do face, once again, they are hosting, they're going to Miami actually tonight to play in that contest. Now, Miami, they're coming off a scoreless draw against Nashville on September 6th. So here is Stephen Glass discussing facing the Miami squad.
Yeah, in terms of what we need to do better against Inter Miami, I think the things that you saw second half against Orlando the other night, the speed that we moved the ball, how much I said after the game, we played like the game was on the line. And I think we need to start like that so that there is a real determination that we don't allow it to become the other team scores first and let's get back in the game. If we can get on top and do that sort of thing early, then I think that's exactly what we're looking for from the start.
And once again, that was manager Stephen Glass discussing Miami. Now, Miami, they did feature their new signee, French international, World Cup winning midfielder, Blaise Matuidi. Make sure to say that right. Yeah, Blaise Matuidi. He is signed with the team, the midfielder that is once again won the World Cup with France. He played in the contest against Nashville. And here is Stephen Glass discussing the Miami roster and their new featured players.
In the game last night, the staff, we stayed up, we watched it. I think you know he's a top level player, so there's no surprise that he's the type of midfield player he is. We know he's box to box. We know he can handle the ball really well, and he's got an energy and a timing about when he presses the ball too. He tends to do pretty much everything correct. That's why he's played at the levels that he has. In terms of us, though, we don't change anything based on him particularly, but we respect the fact that he's a top player, and I'm looking forward to seeing him up close because watching him on the television last night, he was great, and he'll be a great addition for the league, I'm sure.
And that was Stephen Glass discussing the Miami roster. Atlanta, in essence, is playing a round-robin schedule. Since they've come back from the MLS back tournament, they've done home and aways with Nashville. Well, they've finished up the one with Orlando. They went to Orlando and played Orlando at home. Tonight finishes the home and away with Miami. And when they play Nashville on the road on Saturday, the September 12th, that will be their kind of end of this portion of the regular season schedule. And here is Stephen Glass discussing this round robin format and how the team has adapted to it.
It's almost like back home, it'd be like a European tie, a home and away effort. So it's a little bit of that. You get a feel of them when they come to your place. It's the way it's been for us. They've all came to us, so we get a feel of how they play. You can see plenty of them already on video, and they all kind of tend to play a similar style from week to week, especially when they play their top players pretty regularly. So I think we've got a good feeling about how Inter Miami will play because they're good at pressing. They've got good defenders. They trust them to allow the front players to go and press. And if you can break into spaces, that's probably where we think we might get opportunities as long as we're brave enough to play. So it's good in terms of preparation. It's good as a test for ourselves as staff and the players that can you learn lessons from each of the games that you've had. That's probably the biggest aspect for me, that there's a steady improvement.
And now Stephen Glass discussing playing these teams, and that wraps up that portion of. Actually, no. One more note about we did a big feature on Lionel Messi and discussed about 10 minutes all the excitement or possibilities, I should say, about him moving on to different teams around the world. The Barcelona and Argentinian legend, we know who he is if you're listening to the show. He ends up signing back with Barcelona, and if you look at the notes and him reading it, it wasn't I've not read a release of a player coming back to a team more unhappy than his announcement going back to the team. He named names, and with as far as the incompetence of the front office, the lowering of the standards of the team, yet he's signing back with them. And he's coming back. He's going to honor his contract, I should say, for one more season. I guess the opt-out clause that he himself have to pay was up to 700 million euros just for him to be able to transfer out to another team. That's not going to happen. He's not paying that. But I think he's going to do this year, be a professional, and then move on. But it just would have been very exciting to see him go to a Manchester City or Inter Milan or Juventus or PSG, maybe even down to Inter Miami. It was very exciting to have that possibility, but that's not going to happen right now. But we'll see what happens there. It's just, I mean, when you have the greatest player in history of that franchise, and Barcelona's on the short list of top 3, 4 franchises in the history of club soccer. This is a major player in a major situation. I mean, he's been there since he was a teenager or preteen. He signed there, I think, when he was 13 years old. So he's come up in that academy and everything like that. So there's just a lot going on there. But I was very intrigued by that. But it's not going to happen. All right, let's go on to the backdoor cut portion of our show, and that's where we discuss the NBA and all the activities there. I think the reality of what you're seeing right now is, we'll start with the West. You're seeing the Clippers and the Lakers put their stamps on the series. Now, Denver is an intriguing team. They won the 7-game series in the first round over Utah, but the Clippers are the better squad. You just look up and down the roster, and Jamal Murray scores a lot of points. Put himself out there. Jokic is maybe the best center in the NBA. But overall, you look at the teams with Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, and the Clippers focusing more on the defensive end. That's what you've seen the improvement of. They were inconsistent in the Dallas series because they did not play enough defense. And Patrick Beverley being back, their point guard, helps and everything like that. But once they focus on the defensive end, they are a very formidable opponent. I think the Houston and Lakers series is intriguing for entertainment purposes. When you have LeBron James, Anthony Davis on one side, and Russell Westbrook and James Harden on the other, that's going to be exciting and give you intrigue as far as what you're going to see on the court. But overall, it's kind of a similar deal. If the Lakers play their game, and if their front court, which is James and Davis, plays up to their capabilities, they're the better team than the Rockets. But Houston, the thing about Houston is, if they're going to shoot at least 45 to 53 pointers a game, if they have their desire, if they're making 25, if they're making about 50, if they're making about 35 to 45% of their 3-pointers, they're probably going to win that contest. If they're shooting less than that, they're not going to win. And that's where you look at the numbers. It's pretty straightforward in that regard. But I think you'll see the Lakers and Clippers in the Western Conference Finals, which is what a lot of people, including myself, predicted before the regular season even started. So that's kind of the path that's going on there. Now we're going to look at the Eastern Conference. Milwaukee was officially eliminated by the Miami Heat in the semifinals. Giannis Antetokounmpo did not play in the Game 5 of that series, but the Bucks lost the first 3 games of that series with him on the court. Obviously, Game 4, he suffered the ankle injury. Now, Milwaukee was able to win that Game 4 and get to a Game 5, but I think Miami they were the better team in that series, so there's no excuses there in that regard. I mean, they won 3 games with Giannis on the court. They probably would have found a way to win a 4th contest. As far as for the offseason for the Bucks, they have to get more talent, or they have to figure out a way to get past this round or this series. And they're starting to regress. Last year, they were in the Eastern Conference Finals, won the first 2 games of that series against Toronto, and now they lost that series, lost 4 straight in that series, and now they get eliminated in the Eastern Conference Semis, so they're regressing. Giannis is probably going to win the MVP for the 2nd consecutive season. Budenholzer, he didn't get Coach of the Year this year, but he was in the top running there. But you look at that team and just the limitations that they have. Giannis is great. So he's MVP. So when you're an MVP, I mean, you're the most valuable player. We look at the rest of that squad, very limited in what they can do, and they just don't adjust to different styles. If you can hone in on Giannis, and you see the final stat lines, the points and the rebounds are there, and then obviously the defensive presence, defensive player of the year also for him. But you look at the rest of the team. What does Chris Middleton give you? Eric Bledsoe, Robin Lopez, or Brook Lopez, for that matter. The Lopez brothers, they're both on the team. what do they give you? And that's where you see a lot lacking there with the Bucks. Where does Giannis go? I mean, I think he'll be there for next season, but we'll discuss that more in the future. But let's go to Miami though. Respect to the Bucks. I mean, to the Heat for beating the Bucks. You look at Jimmy Butler, abrasive personality. You look at him, and is he a superstar in the Kawhi Leonard, LeBron James, Giannis level? Is he that? Maybe not necessarily, because you look at the numbers and you look at his contributions, they're not as much as they do. But you look at that team and just the way they're constructed, they fit his personality, they fit that Miami personality with Eric Spoelstra, who's a very underrated head coach. We all know, we look at the Heat when they won their championships with LeBron and Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh, and those guys get the attention. But Spoelstra, he's done a very good job of building that culture and yield to Pat Riley and just what he, as a general manager and the czar of that team in essence, what they've built there. They're really maybe a year or two ahead of their rebuild because they got all the young guys. Got Hero and Bam is an all-star, so he had a very good year as well. But you look at their, like Hero, you look at some of the other guys, they have a lot of young talent there that is evolving and growing. And now they're in the Eastern Conference Finals, and to not make a finals appearance would not be out of question because they play physical, they play defense, they're very organized, and if you can do all of those elements, and you have a guy like Jimmy Butler who is giving you the points that you need as a top scorer, you can make some noise in the playoffs. And they're in the conference finals, and they're going to face either Toronto or Boston out of the Eastern in the other semifinal series. Boston jumped out to a very big lead in that series. Toronto kind of worked their way back into it. Boston won the critical Game 5. Game 6 is tonight. You have to figure if Boston is going to make that move. We've been very critical of them in the past because we hear so much about Brad Stevens, how he's the next legendary coach and up-and-coming guy as far as being a championship caliber coach. Jason Tatum, we've heard ever since he came out of Duke as a freshman, this guy's going to be an all-star, be a superstar and everything like that. We've been waiting for all of this stuff to happen. Maybe this is the year we're starting to see that take place. And even without Gordon Hayward, you look at the Boston roster with Kemba Walker and Jaylen Brown. Marcus Smart, who I've been critical, I think he's been very overrated throughout his career, but he's really found his spot now in his niche as a solid defender, glue guy, contributor. Guys were talking about him like he was an all-star superstar. I was like, no, his offense is not very good. He's small, he's short, he's not very athletic, and those are my criticisms of him. But you've seen him this year, and I'm watching the Celtics closely. He has been a better contributor all the way around for the Celtics. So you have that team finding their way and coming together. Toronto, Pascal Siakam has just not been playing very well in the series. So when he's their best player, and when he's not playing well, that really messes up for the rest of the team. So I think in the end, you're probably going to have the Boston and Miami conference finals. We'll be very intrigued if and when that happens. There was some coaching news in the NBA as well, with Steve Nash being hired by the Brooklyn Nets. It's a move. What this shows really is that relationships matter when it comes, not only in life they matter, whether it's your spouse, your partner, family members, work, business. It's a lot about who you know and how you work those relationships. Steve Nash has a very good relationship with Kevin Durant. They train together. They've done a lot of activities together. Kyrie Irving has a good relationship with him as well. Those are the two best players for the Brooklyn Nets. Everything that they're going to do as a franchise ties into those two guys. So they have to co-sign on the deal. I've heard a lot of the stories or with him, like, he has no coaching experience. He's never done this and done that. We've seen it happen quite a bit in the NBA. We saw it with Mark Jackson with the Warriors. We've seen it with numerous cases of guys who went straight. Jason Kidd, Derek Fisher, and it's the guys that I'm naming are black guys. And that's where Stephen A. Smith, and I'll call him out, I don't care. we're talking about the nepotism and the way the league works and all this other stuff. Two things with that. One, it's about who can coach, and Nash, it is what it is. He's a Hall of Famer. He's one of the best players in history of the game. He's a popular name. He's a known guy. Is he going to breaks in that regard? Sure, that's going to happen. But if you're going to, but then you can't with Stephen A. Smith. He's talking about, hi, he's a black guy doesn't get a chance. When I named several black guys that have gotten the same exact opportunity and situation that Steve Nash, keep calling him Steve Nash got with the Brooklyn Nets. So you can't go that route. And then two, he says it's a good hire. You can't have it both ways. Look, if people want to play the race card, it's very easy with Steve Nash and everything like that, but it's not the case. And then two, the two best players that I mentioned are black guys, in Durant and Kyrie. If they're on this race trip, if Ty Lue wanted to get the job, or if Mark Jackson, if they wanted one of those guys, and those are the guys that have been coming up, it's like, why don't they get a chance? They would have had an opportunity to go to Brooklyn just as much as Steve Nash. We all know what the deal is when it comes to that franchise, or any franchise in the NBA. When you have two high caliber NBA champion or winning players like that on your roster, you're gonna go to them and get more. If you're Mr. or if you're social justice person, or why doesn't a black man get hired, and this is racism and all this other stuff, don't direct your attention to Sean Marks, the general manager, who's a white guy. Direct it towards Durant and towards Kyrie Irving, the players. You want to get on the general manager and the ownership, you get on the players. But that's not going to happen, because the Stephen A. Smiths and all these other people that are calling it out, they want to get that interview with Kyrie. They want to get the interview with Durant. So they're not going to call him out publicly, because if they call him out publicly like I am right now, I don't care. They're not going to come on my show. I don't give a crap. So if they fear calling them out, so they're not going to do that sit down special or do that interview and all that other stuff. So that's why you see the lack of accountability of the media towards players in the scenario, and in general, overall, if you want to keep it 100 or keep it real or honest, whatever term you want to say, get on them just as much as you do the management in this scenario. Now, that's not always the case, all the time, but in this situation, call out Durant, call out Irving for not, sticking for the man, or not going for the man, or whatever term you want to say. So that was my thoughts on all that. Will it work out with Steve Nash? We don't know. He could be like Steve Kerr, another guy who was never a head coach and never an assistant. Now, he was a general manager with the Phoenix Suns, so he did work in an NBA front office. But we don't know who it could have gone, how that could have went, and obviously he won multiple championships with the Warriors and still coaching there. So just go down the list of a lot of these guys who coached in the end, who were players, never were an assistant, and got a gig. So calm down with all of the. I know it's easy to play the race card or call racism in this time and age, and it does exist in many scenarios. I'm not saying it doesn't exist. I'm not going to pull that systematic racism doesn't exist. I'm not playing that. That's not true. There are a lot of issues, but in this case, you got to look at it case by case. This one, I don't see it at all. Another move that was surprising that happened this morning as we were doing our outline, Billy Donovan is not going to return with the Oklahoma City Thunder. I thought he did a very good job this year. They won a playoff series, and they got to the second round of the playoffs. But in the end, they lost to Houston. No, I take that back. They lost to Houston in the first round. But for them to get to the playoffs with Chris Paul and Dennis Schroeder and a bunch of young guys, I thought he did a very good job there. But they've decided to mutually part ways. So that means either one of two things in this scenario, because he wasn't fired, because they had a bad season. Either he has another job lined up, or the Thunder have a coach that they're looking to do. I think it's more about Billy Donovan probably having another job lined up. I hear Chicago is maybe of peak interest for him. So we'll see what happens there. There's some other positions open around the NBA, but I thought he did a very good job for his time there. He got them to the playoffs, and they played very well. But we'll see what happens there with that. All right, let's go to the Miscellaneous Department and wrap up today's show. Make sure you check. I didn't talk a lot of college athletics because we did a very good job with. I'm bragging on myself, but I had a very good opportunity to speak with several of the Georgia college head coaches throughout the state over the past few days, and we did a full show, our Technical State of Georgia Athletics podcast, where you can listen to all of those interviews, as I mentioned, with Georgia State head coaches Sally Bohemus and Brett Surensee, and then also with Georgia Tech volleyball head coach Michelle Carrier. And we also were able to speak with Georgia Tech volleyball players and with Georgia State volleyball players. So make sure you head to the site in Technical State of Georgia Athletics, and that'd be a great way to catch up on all the things going on there. As far as the NHL playoffs, I wanted to touch on that a little bit. I think we're probably heading towards a Tampa-Las Vegas final as far as that goes. You saw the Islanders, very good run there in the conference finals for the first time in a few years. As a New York Rangers fan or supporter, you don't like to go for the Islanders in any way, but they've done really well. Barry Trotz, tremendous head coach. You saw what he did in Nashville, won the Cup a few years ago with the Washington Capitals. He's gotten them in the conference finals, but I think Tampa is just a better team overall, and winning 8-2 in Game 1 of that series is a nice way to put your stamp or your presence on it. I mean, the Islanders won't get swept. I think they'll win a game, maybe 2 games, but Tampa looks like they're going to roll to the finals. As far as the Western Conference Finals with Dallas and Las Vegas, I think Vegas is the team to beat there as well. Now, Dallas had a very good run as well, beating Colorado in the Western Conference semis in Game 7, getting an OT goal there. But I think overall Vegas has been the better team, and it's the pun. The Vegas odds are Vegas is doing very well. If you look at the odds, you're looking at probably a Boston and Vegas final. Boston was eliminated earlier in the playoffs, but Vegas, you look at them, they're the top seed out of the West. They've been the team that's rolling. So I think we may see a Vegas and Tampa series, and that'll be very intriguing. And then we're going to wrap up our Miscellaneous Department and the show. Let's discuss Novak Djokovic. He accidentally hit the female official in the throat after hitting a ball in frustration during his 4th round match against Pablo Carreno Busta on September 6th. We've all seen the video by now. He was frustrated. He hit the ball. It went right into the face or throat of the female official in their 4th round match. She went down in pain, and he was defaulted from the contest. Here's what I think of that. I think that did he mean to hit her? No. Obviously, he didn't mean. He had remorse right when he did it. He saw it hit her. He didn't mean to do that. But the rules are that if you make that type of foul, you're going to be disqualified or defaulted. That's the term that's used in tennis. Where the factors, and it's weird because they don't have the line judges. They only have the line judges, the ones that are in that position, on only 2 of the courts. Think Billie Jean King's court and Arthur Ashe, the 2 big courts. Every other court, they don't have officials there. They use the Hawkeye or the technology system to declare defaults, or they have a different setup. So if he was on any other court, if it was on besides the Ashe and King, he would have hit that ball and then would have done anything. And during that match, you saw him get frustrated earlier, and he hit a ball very hard towards the bench. No people there in that regard, and he wasn't penalized or given he didn't lose a point, he didn't lose a set or anything like that. So you saw him do it once, and I think the amplification of it was when he did it once, he didn't get a foul. So I think that was kind of the unofficial warnings, like, okay, you had one outburst, don't do another one. 2, he hit a woman, and in that position, and we're very sensitive to that, as we should be. I think it was a male line judge, it would have been bad as well, but it was a woman. That's we all have feelings about that, and you don't want to see anybody get hurt, but especially a woman. And 3, she and rightfully, I don't say rightfully so, but she went down and let out a scream and was hurt by that. If it grazed her head or just missed her head, or if it didn't hit that part of her body, if it like hit her leg or something and it didn't hurt her, and it just hit her and kept it moving, would he have been defaulted? Probably not. But you have a visual of a line judge, down on the ground after being hit by a tennis ball that was hit by a player in frustration. That's a very bad look. So I think that's why you saw that default. Now, could they have docked the point from Djokovic, or maybe even the set, because he was down in the set, I think 6-5, but he was down and said, "You dropped the set for in that situation, possibly." And what we saw 2 years ago was Serena Williams in the final against Naomi Osaka. She was just and I thought she should have been defaulted and possibly thrown out of that match, where she was verbally abusive towards the umpire, judge, and towards everybody there, and was very unruly in that scenario. Now, Serena Williams did not hit anybody. She was verbally very abrasive, but no, she didn't hit anybody. So I think you can make that case as different scenarios. That's fair. But under the tennis rules, she could have been defaulted as well, but they did not do it. But I think if the scenario you consider as well is that this was an empty stadium. The cameras, it was kind of a side angle, because the cameras, the main ESPN cameras that were broadcasting it, they didn't even catch it. It was kind of like the side camera, or kind of like the one that's near the bench, like a sideline cam. That's what I'm trying to say. Like a sideline camera that caught the incident on film. So it wasn't even looked at, because it was a change in points. So it wasn't. They weren't even focused on them in that regard. Because usually players just walk to the bench or change sides of the court. There's no need to have the camera really on them like that. But I think if it was a full stadium and people were watching, they probably would have had that match continue. They probably would have docked him a point or given him a warning. He would have been fined and all that other stuff, like he eventually has been as far as financially. But that match probably would have continued if you had a crowd there, because that would have been the pressure. They would have been booing. And being a New Yorker, or former New Yorker now, I guess I've been in Georgia a long time now, those tickets are very expensive. U.S. Open draws a lot of people from around the world, and those seats are hundreds of dollars. So do you think that if it was on Labor Day weekend, which is their biggest weekend, even more the championship weekend, on Labor Day weekend, they would have kicked out the best player in the world, best player in that tournament, especially at least on the men's side, and the biggest draw over that incident? I don't think so. So that's where you gotta look at the standards and everything like that. But just hearing everybody talk about it and looking at it, and I mean, I follow tennis, but I'm not expert in that regard. There are rules in the books about that type of stuff. And him eliminated from the tournament, it hurts them, because he's the biggest draw on the men's side, or as far as TV ratings go, because the draw doesn't really matter as far as people attending the contest. But he's their biggest name. You got Nadal's not playing in it. Roger Federer's not playing in the tournament. The other two big guys on the field, they're not in it. So you add that all up, they don't want to eliminate him. He's their biggest draw. And we've talked. And I like Thiem and Medvedev and some of the other younger tennis players, men's side, trying to make their presence felt. But it's about Novak, and wanting to see him. So I think him being eliminated, it really hurts them in that regard, and I don't think they wanted to, but rules are the rules and everything like that, and that's just the way things are. So that's my thoughts on that. And that concludes today's broadcast. Thanks for listening to today's show. As always, follow everything that we're doing under the sportsinquirer.net. Go to Twitter and Instagram under Sports Inquirer. That's all one word. Then you go to our Facebook pages under the Sports Inquirer and Sports Inquirer. And finally, subscribe to us on YouTube, SoundCloud, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and iTunes, all under the Sports Inquirer. Until next time, good fight, good night, be safe.